So yeah, as I said, we were going to start with the text Orientalism. Orientalism is a book written by Edward W. Said. So do you guys know a bit about Edward Said? He's the father of post-colonial studies. Yes, he's the father of post-colonial studies. And yeah, he's very, very popular in the humanities, in critical theory. Do you guys know some things about his background?
We knew about him in the last class. Like our course, critical theory. So that knows that he's the father of post-colonial study.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
That's all he said? She said? Okay, so some background. He is a Palestinian American. Said, Edward W. Said, the Said part, you can tell that he's an Arab. Okay? So he's a Palestinian American. When he was
Muslim or Christian?
He's a Christian. He's a Palestinian Christian. So contrary to what we know, Palestine is not only populated by Muslims, Palestine is also populated by Christians, and they are also persecuted just like the Muslims by the Jews over there. Okay? So the Jews hate the Jews over there hate the Christians a lot. It's not like the Christians and the Jews are friends. The Jews literally spit on the Christians when they see the Christians go by. Literally. So yes, when Said was very young, when he was in his early teens, he left Palestine for Egypt for his education, and then later on he moved to America. And after going to America, he studied literature, and he became the professor of University of Columbia. All right. So because he's from Palestine, the colonization of Palestine bothered him a lot. So those issues bothered him a lot, and we find some of those things entering his work: the colonization, the Orientalism, the kind of propaganda that goes on against let's say Palestine, had gone against Palestinians, the Arabs, the Muslims. These are some of the things that show up in his work.
Invented and settlers both. Can we consider Palestine as invented and settlers?
Well, it depends. Currently, it would be called a settler. At some period in history, it may be called an invaded colony. Okay. Okay, let us begin. Somebody read out the introduction. Who wants to start? Who wants to go? On a visit to Beirut.
Introduction part. On a visit to Beirut during the terrible civil war of 1975 to 1976, a French journalist wrote regretfully of the gutted downtown area that it had once seemed to belong to the Orient of
Chateaubriand
and Nerval.
If you guys don't get these names properly, it's okay. All right, because I mean, we are not supposed to know all kinds of strange names. Okay, we will try. We will try.
He was right about the place, of course, especially so far as a European was concerned. The Orient was almost a European invention and had been since antiquity a place of romance, exotic beings, haunting memories and landscapes. Remarkable experiences. Now it was disappearing. In a sense, it had happened. Its time was over.
Okay, hold on for a moment. The Orient was almost a European invention and had been since antiquity a place of romance, exotic beings, haunting memories and landscapes, remarkable experiences. What does this mean? What is this this part trying to say here? The Orient was almost a European invention and had been since antiquity. This part. A place of romance, exotic beings, haunting memories, and landscapes. Who can interpret this for me? Okay, first things first. The Orient was invented or by the Europeans. He's saying that almost invented by the Europeans. Okay, what does it mean to invent? Invent means to make something up.
To make something useful.
And had been since antiquity a place of romance. So the Orient had been since old age a place of romance. What does he mean by romance here?
French.
Is it like the romance we know about? What is he talking about?
Roman Empire.
Romance.
A place of romance. So we know a place of romance that is France. Paris City.
What he's trying to say here by romance means adventure, a place of adventure. Exotic beings. What does exotic beings mean? Exotic beings? What does exotic mean?
Extraordinary. I mean
Exceptional, odd, let's say, odd, strange,
which is uncommon, unusual.
uncommon, unusual, exactly. Uncommon, unusual beings. Okay? Haunting memories and landscapes. Haunting memories. Who can explain me haunting memories? What does it mean to haunt? Yes, exactly. This is my question. What does haunting mean? Scary. What scares us? Ghost scares us. Haunting memories. So the memories that people have, or in particular the Europeans have of the Orient is very haunting. It's very frightening. Okay.
It's fearsome. It's fearsome.
Yeah. So very fearsome. And landscapes. Remarkable experiences. I'm sure you guys all understand. Okay, continue. Now it was disappearing.
Perhaps it seemed irrelevant that Orientals themselves had something at stake in the process. That even in the time of Chateaubriand and Narwhal, Orientals had lived there, and that now it was they who were suffering. The main thing for the European visitor was the European representation of the Orient and its contemporary fate, both of which had a privileged communal
significance
for the journalist and his French readers. Americans will not feel quite the same about the Orient, which for them is much more likely to be associated very differently with the Far East, China and Japan mainly. Unlike the Americans, the French and the British, less so the Germans, Russians, Spanish, Portuguese, Italians and Swiss have had a long tradition of what I shall be calling Orientalism.
So who are these people who have a long tradition of Orientalism?
Spanish, Portuguese, Italians and Swiss.
So these are all colonizers. Okay.
A way of coming to terms with the Orient that is based on the Orient's special place in European Western experience. The Orient is not only adjacent to Europe, it is also the place of Europe's greatest and richest and oldest colonies, the source of its civilizations and languages, its cultural contestant, and one of its deepest and most recurring images of the other.
Okay, so this part. The Orient is not only adjacent to Europe, it is also the place of Europe's greatest and richest and oldest colonies. What does this mean? Who can explain this to me? The Orient, sorry, where was I? Yeah, the Orient is not only adjacent to Europe. The Orient is not only adjacent to Europe. What does this mean?
It's not only based on Europe, but also
Adjacent means, what does adjacent mean? Adjacent means next to. So think of it simply.
Even
The-
there's some countries which are not part of Europe, they also are colonizers.
Sorry?
There are some countries which are not a part of Europe. They are also colonizers.
Give me an example. Give me an example.
Like British.
Mughal.
British are part of British is Europe. British is the definition of Europe. Huh?
No, they were occupied by British Empire. If I talk about Mughal Empire,
No, the Mughals were not colonizers. We will no. Look, it's okay. We will explain why the Mughals are not colonizers, because colonization.
colonization, because they didn't rule badly like the British Empire. They didn't torture us. They didn't influence us the modernity, the religion, their language. So British taught us how to speak English. So that's why British Empire considered as a colonizers.
There is a whole range of discussion on this, huge discussion.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we will get into that. Don't worry. But you're somewhat right. Yes, somebody wanted to say something. Ottomans what?
Ottoman Empire, they are also colonizers.
Were they?
Captured Europe, half of Europe.
Okay, so when we are using the word colonization, we are it has been colored with a unique idea. So there are lots of civilizations, lots of countries invade and have taken over other countries, but they are not all colonizers in the sense that we understand, because according to Said, colonization, or this unique kind of colonization began starting with 17th century by the Europeans. Before that, people have invaded, but it was not in the way that Europeans have invaded. And we will talk about this, why European colonization is quote unquote the colonization. All right? Where was I? It was also the place of Europe's greatest and richest and oldest colonies. Name one of Europe's greatest and richest colonies.
No.
Colonies.
Japan.
Canada. Oh, sorry.
We just talked of,
France.
America.
Look, you guys are naming the colonizers. I want the colonies of the colonizers. Give me the name of a colony that has been the oldest and richest for the colonizers. Read it again. It is also the place of Europe's greatest and richest and oldest colonies. Europe's colonies. What are Europe's colonies? Okay, tell me, what is Britain's most richest colony? South Asia. Okay, South Asia. Britain's richest colony is South Asia. The source of its civilizations and languages, and its cultural contestant, and one of its deepest and most recurring images of the other. Okay. So what is the other? What we understand by the other here? What does other mean? Other?
Yeah, other means the countries which are not included in European civilization.
You're right, but what does the word mean? What does the word mean? The word other mean?
Exception.
Other means exception.
No, sir.
Another person, someone else, someone that is not you.
Yes.
So what is the opposite of other? What is the opposite word of other? What is the antonym of other? Antonym of other is self. The self and the other. The self is me, the self is I. The other is they, them. All right. Whoops.
May I continue?
Yes. In addition,
In addition, the Orient has helped to define Europe or the West as its contrasting image, idea, personality, experience. It none of this Orient is merely imaginative. The Orient is an integral part of European material civilization and culture. Orientalism expresses and represents the part culturally and even ideologically as a mode of discourse with supporting institutions, vocabulary, scholarship, imagery, doctrines, even colonial what is this word?
Styles. Colonial styles.
Styles and before colonial styles.
Bureaucracies. Oh, colonial bureaucracies and colonial styles. Okay, let's stop here. So, the Orient has helped to define Europe or the West as its contrasting image. What does this mean? The Orient has helped to define Europe or the West as its contrasting image. What is contrast? Yes, the Orient has helped Europe or the West understand how it is different from the East or the Orient as its contrasting image, not just image by the way, idea, personality, experience. Okay?
May I continue? In contrast, the American understanding of the Orient will seem considerably less dense, although our recent Japanese, Korean, and Indo-Chinese adventurers ought now to be creating a more sober, more realistic Oriental awareness. Moreover, the vastly expanded American political and economic role in the Near East, the Middle East, makes great claims on our understanding of the Orient.
Okay. So what is being said here is this: the way that America understands, the American understanding of the Orient and the, let's say, European understanding of the Orient is different. For America, what is the Orient? For America, the Orient is, we just read it in over here. For America, the Orient is the Chinese, the Japanese. These are the, yes, yes. So they are the Far Easterners. For the British, these are, for the British, the Orient is what? South Asia, Middle East. Then where else? And other regions, let's say. No problem.
It will be clear to the reader and will become clearer still throughout the many pages that follow. That by Orientalism I mean several things. All of them, in my opinion, independent.
Interdependent. What does interdependent mean? Dependent on each other. Continue.
The most readily accepted designation for Orientalism is an academic one, and indeed the label still serves in a number of academic institutions. Anyone who teaches, writes about, or researches the Orient, and this applies whether the person is an anthropologist, sociologist, historian, or philologist, either in its specific or its
general aspects.
Is an Orientalist, and what he or she does is Orientalism.
Okay, we get an interesting definition of what an Orientalist is. What is an Orientalist? What is an Orientalist? We just read this part. What is an Orientalist? We just read. We are reading the part right now. Just go through it.
Sociologist, historian, and philologist.
No. Underline this part. Anyone who teaches, writes about, or researches the Orient And this applies whether the person is an anthropologist, sociologist, historian, or philologist, either in its specific or its general aspects, is an Orientalist. Okay? This is the definition of what, if I ask you guys, who is an Orientalist? This is the best definition you guys can ever get. And wait, let me finish. And what he or she does is Orientalism. Basically, anybody who studies the East or the Orient is an Orientalist. And what he does is Orientalism. Fine, continue.
Compared with Oriental studies or area studies, it is true that the term Orientalism is less preferred by
Specialists
today, both because it is too vague and general, and because it connotes the high-handed executive attitude in 19th century and early 20th century European colonialism.
Nevertheless,
books are written and congresses held with the Orient. As their main focus with the Orientalist is his new or old Jews.
Guys, where did Jews come from?
Guys as their main authority. The point is that even if it does not survive as it once did, Orientalism lives on academically through its doctrines and this
thesis
about the Orient and the Oriental.
Okay, fine. Okay, hey, does anybody wants to ask any questions so far? Is there any part of this text that we didn't understand so far? Just ask. Which part? Read it out to me.
Nevertheless, books are written and always held with the Orient as their main focus, with the Orientalism being his new or old guys as their main authority.
Okay, so Said is saying that even now, Europeans who claim to be experts on the Orient have conferences. What is a conference? Conference is Shobha Shomiti. So the Europeans, they get together, they have a Shobha, they have a conference where they discuss the Orient. So they present themselves as experts. So for example, one person is going to come up and say, I'm an expert on the Middle East.
Kind of like community communication or something.
Yes. So it's like, people get together, specialists on certain areas, they come together and then talk about the Orient. That's what's being said here. And they generate ideas and discourses on the Orient.
Sort of event. Sort of an event.
It's an event. So yes, I want somebody else to read now. Would you like to try? You didn't bring the text? Oh no, why you did? Are there still people who didn't bring the text? Look, the ERP just opened for me. I just posted the text over there. So those of you who don't have it, please download it and bring the text next class. You guys should have it by now. This is very sad. Okay, why don't you give it a try?
Related to this.
Okay, you, okay?
Related to this academic tradition, whose fortunes, transmigrations, specializations, and transmissions are in part the subject of this study, is a more general meaning for Orientalism. Orientalism is a style of thought based upon an ontological and epistemological distinction made between the Orient and, most of the time, the Occident.
Okay, very important part. Two words that you guys do not understand or know. I'm guessing ontology and epistemology. Do you guys know what this means? Okay. Read out that part again, that exact part.
Orientalism is a style of thought based Orientalism is a style of thought based upon an ontological and epistemological distinction made between the Orient and most of the time the Occident.
Okay, so Orientalism is a style of thought. Orientalism is a style of thought based upon the difference between the Orient and based on an epistemological and ontological distinction between the Orient and the Occident. This is the Orient, this is the Occident. And what kind of distinction is being made between the two? An ontological and epistemological. Epistemological. What is epistemology?
Part of Plato.
Epistemology. Yes, somebody wanted to say something. Part of?
Plato theories.
Knowledge.
What is the theory? That is what I want to know.
Theory of knowledge.
It can be part of many people's theory, but what is it? Theory?
Theory of knowledge.
Theory of knowledge. Epistemology means theory of knowledge. What does ontology mean? Ontology. Ontology? What is ontology? Yes, I expect the answer from you because you could answer epistemology. Ontology is the study of being. It's a philosophical study of being. Existence, exactly. Who said it? Very good. Please. So first things first, I need to explain a few things. Ontology. So what they're saying is this: what the Europeans do is this is the other, okay, or the Orient, other or the Orient. The Orient is the other here. Ontology is being, okay, or existence. The existence of the other is always negative. The other is always negative because when we talk about ourselves, think about it this way. When we usually talk about ourselves, we usually have good things to say about us because we love ourselves. When we talk about the other, bad things come out, negative things come out. So this is what's going on here. The other is always negative. So the Europeans are going to say the Easterners or the Orientals are inferior race. These are inferior races. Okay? Inferior. So have you guys heard of Charles Darwin?
Yes.
What is he known for? In English?
Genetical transformation.
Evolutionary theory. Evolutionary theory, okay. So interestingly, so here's the thing. We know, like, so people have come up with ideas like, human beings have come from what? Monkeys, right? Monkeys or apes. Apes all the way to, they have evolved to human beings. So their idea is this: the Orientals or others are closer to the ape in evolution. The Europeans are as farther away from the apes as possible. Okay? These are the Europeans over here. Europeans are the Westerners, and these are the, let's say they have a scale. For the first, it's the African. The African is the closest to the ape. The Middle Easterns are somewhere over here, close to the Europeans, but not quite as evolved as the Europeans. The Middle Easterners. And there are varieties of other races in between, okay? So according to them, they're the most evolved and the farthest away from the monkeys and apes. And then the more backwards you go, these are the other populations that they invaded. So your being is inferior. The Europeans view the other as inferior beings.
Like we are not fully civilized.
Yes, or fully evolved like them. That is sort of the idea. So in short, this is connected to ontology. So your genetically, your very being, your very existence is inferior. So there is no possibility whatsoever with any kind of education or knowledge for you to, be as civilized as them. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay. That's ontology. And then there is what? Epistemology. Epistemology is concerned with generating knowledge and discourse. Okay, so they're making distinctions. So the Orient has a certain kind of philosophy. They have certain values. They have certain knowledge systems. As every civilization and culture has different knowledge systems, and we have different. And the Europeans are thinking, and we have different knowledge systems. So it's the these are the things they're making distinctions between. First of all, the being, and then their knowledge. The knowledge follows from the being. Inferior knowledge follows from inferior beings. Superior knowledge follows from superior beings. Okay, continue.
Thus, a very large mass of writers, among whom are poets, novelists, philosophers, political theorists, economists, and imperial administrators, have accepted the basic distinction between East and the West as the starting point of elaborate theories, epics, novels, social descriptions, and political accounts concerning the Orient, its people, customs, mind, destiny, and so on. This Orientalism can accommodate
Aeschylus,
Say, and Victor Hugo, Dante, and Karl Marx. A little later in this introduction, I shall deal with the methodological problems or encounters in so broadly
construed a field
as this.
Okay, hold on for a moment. So he's saying more interesting things here. I'm going to read this part again, okay? Thus a very large mass. So we already talked about the epistemological and ontological distinction made between the Orient and the Occident, right? Thus, a very large mass of writers, among whom are poets, novelists, philosophers, political theorists, economists, and imperial administrators, have accepted the basic distinction between East and West as the starting point for elaborate theories, epics. Okay? So, epics, novels, social descriptions, and political accounts concerning the Orient, its people, customs, mind, destiny, and so on. Even the destiny of the Orient is decided in poets and novels and so on. So, what is destiny? Do you guys know? No. I asked, what is destiny? Not exactly. Can somebody explain to me what destiny is?
We will spend our life.
Yes. Exactly. How will we spend our life? Where will we end up in the future? What could we possibly achieve in our life? That is destiny. That's what we mean by destiny. So they are such experts that they have already decided these things for us in novels, poems, epics, etc., etc. This Orientalism can accommodate, and who is he calling Orientalists? Aeschylus, Victor Hugo. Have you guys heard of Victor Hugo? French novelist. Dante, Italian poet. Karl Marx. You guys have heard of Karl Marx, right? Karl Marx is what? Karl Marx is a theorist. He's an economic theorist, you could say. You guys have heard of Marxism, right?
Yes, sir.
Marxism, socialism, communism. In critical theory. So these people are all what? Doing Orientalism. Continue, the interchange.
The interchange between the academic and the more or less imaginative meanings of Orientalism is a constant one. And since the late 18th century, there has been a considerable, quite disciplined, perhaps even regulated traffic between the two. Here I come to the third meaning of Orientalism, which is something more historical and materially defined than either of the other two. Taking the late 18th century as a very roughly defined starting point of Orientalism can be discussed and analyzed as the corporate institution for dealing with the Orient, dealing with it by making statements about it. authorizing views of it, describing it, by teaching it, settling it, ruling over it. In short, Orientalism as a Western style for dominating,
Restructuring.
and having authority over the Orient.
This is the definition of Orientalism. Right here. Underline it or highlight it, however you guys take note of it. Taking the late 18th century as a very roughly defined starting point, Orientalism can be discussed and analyzed as a corporate institution. Or Orientalism can be roughly defined as a corporate institution for dealing with the Orient, dealing with it by making statements. How do we deal with the Orient? We make statements of it. We describe it, okay? Authorizing views of it. Okay, how do we authorize views? By becoming an authority on a particular subject. Describing it, teaching it, settling it, ruling over it. Okay? In short, Orientalism, continue, sorry. In short,
Orientalism as a Western style for dominating, restructuring, and having authority over the Orient.
okay. So yeah, somebody here was telling me. So you guys mentioned this. So the Mughals also, like invaded the South Asian region, right? The Mughals, the Ottomans invaded the European, the western side of that region. But are they called colonizers? No, they're not really called colonizers, because Orientalism is, are they called Orientalists is what I'm trying to say. No, they're not Orientalists, because Orientalism is a Western style of domination. It is Western in nature. Where was I?
I have found it useful. I have found it useful here to employ
Michel Foucault's
notion of discourse as described by him in the Archaeology of Knowledge and in Discipline and Punish to identify Orientalism. My contention is that without examining Orientalism as a discourse, one cannot possibly understand the enormously systematic discipline by which European culture was able to manage and even produce the Orient politically, sociologically, militarily, ideologically, scientifically, and imaginatively during the post-Enlightenment period. Moreover, so authoritative a position did Orientalism have that I believe no one writing, thinking, or acting on the Orient could do so without taking account of limitations on thought and action imposed by the Orientalism. In brief, because of Orientalism, the Orient was not, and it is not, a free subject of thought or action. This is not to say that Orientalism unilaterally determines what can be said about the Orient, but that it is the whole network of interest inevitably brought to bear on and therefore always involved in any occasion when that particular entity, the Orient, is in question. How this happens is what this book tries to demonstrate. It also tries to show that European culture gained in strength and identity by setting itself off against the Orient as a sort of surrogate and even underground self.
Okay. European culture gained in strength and identity by setting itself against the Orient as a sort of surrogate and even underground self. What does this mean? Please. What does this mean? You guys tell me. You guys think about it and tell me. I'll give you guys a moment. That last line.
is it like European culture gained power by showing themselves as like they are against Orientalist or something like that?
Yes, but over here we find European culture gained in strength and identity by setting itself off against the Orient. That's what you said. As a then there's the next part. As a sort of surrogate or even underground self. What does this part mean then?
Something like they made us feel like we are uncivilized, and surrogate means something they are taking benefits by us by dominating, like surrogate mother.
I understand. What about the underground self part?
Like the
Neil is it not Poppy? Poppy, right?
নীল চাষের মতো আর কি, যেমন যে আমাদের কাছ থেকে বেনিফিট নিচ্ছি কিন্তু আমাদেরকেই ডমিনেট।
Yes, but what about underground self?
So this means they are dominating us, but they are not showing in front.
Showing what?
They are not.
They are also dominating us, but they are keeping
Not
it
showing
hidden.
off like they are in
They are
front
showing
of
it
us.
that they are against it, but also taking benefit from it.
Okay, so you guys are all kind of there, but let me explain. There are some things that you guys have to understand. I already mentioned that from an evolutionary perspective, their perspective. So if, let's say, if the Europeans, according to them, are the highest stage of evolution, evolutionary speaking, at some point they were also apes, right?
Yes.
So basically they were at some point behind the scale.
Yes.
So they see themselves in the Orientals as well. They're thinking we were like them, but we have become better. Okay? Underground self. That's what underground self is mean. European culture gained in strength and identity by setting itself off against the Orient as a sort of surrogate and even underground self. So there are other things that I could talk about. For example, Europe did not used to believe in secularism, for example. Do you guys understand secularism? Secularism. Who can give me the definition? Definition. Secularism. What is the definition of secularism? Nobody has heard of this word before?
But we don't know the definition.
It doesn't have to be exact. Just give me your impression of it. What does it mean? What do you think it means? What do you think? Yes?
We don't think.
What are you talking about?
Is it about like a dictatorship? Is it about like dictatorship?
What? Dictator? No, look. I have to read some things, okay.
So we are new to this.
Sorry?
We are new to this.
No, you guys are not supposed to be new to this. These are things that we always talk about. Haven't you? Didn't you guys do Bangladesh studies or something in school or something? Didn't you guys study democracy, secularism, nationalism, and things like that?
It's in Bangla like dharmonirupekho.
Let me explain. Dharmonirupekho is different. You are talking about neutrality. I'm not talking about neutrality. Secularism is separation, basically, in one line, is separation between church and state. Church and state. What does this mean? This is simple English. Tell me what this means.
চার্চ ইংল্যান্ডে যেমন চার্চ এক পক্ষ চার্চ মানে গির্জাকে মানে গির্জার পক্ষে মানে অন্য পক্ষ
In English.
Some follows the
Difference between atheist and religious.
No, let me explain. So for a long time, okay, let me explain it like this. Secularism believes that religion cannot govern religion should not be involved in governance of a state. So basically, the government should not or cannot use religious laws or religious ideas for governance. Okay, so the governance should be based on people's demands, let's say, based on people's demands, and religion. People can follow their religion privately. Religion should not enter governance. That's basically what they believe in. There should be a separation. This was not how it used to be in Europe or the West for a long time. So basically, have you guys heard of the Enlightenment? The Enlightenment. We are going to read. That is a text we are going to read. So basically, during Enlightenment, we find this separation. Wait, I'm forgetting what we were talking about. What was I talking about? No. Before secularism, I was trying to make a point.
Underground self.
Underground self. Yes. So yes. So basically, governance was connected to religion previously, and they have come out of that. They look at the Middle Easterners, okay? They look at the Middle Easterners specifically and other Islamic lands, and they say, well, you guys we've gone past that. We're past that, okay? We don't govern that way anymore. We have become better. So they view the Orientals as their underground self, as their previous self. They used to be like that. They've got better. That's the idea they have in their head. Did I manage to make that clear? Okay. Yes? Okay, who here understood? Explain to her.
It's like
Look at her when you explain.
it's like previously they believe they are like apes.
Don't look at me.
Now they have evolved. In some places they still believe they are in the previous genre. Like that.
They stick to the previous genre. Understand?
Who else can explain?
I understand, but I cannot explain it.
Okay. Who understood? Tell me. Nobody understood what I explained just now?
Which topic?
Huh?
Which topic?
Sorry?
Which topic?
Who said that? Did you not understand the? Explain it to me then.
I can't tell her.
Okay, explain it to me. Why don't you? Okay, explain it to me.
So charts are on the state.
No.
Underground self.
Underground self. Underground self, it means that colonizing people, they like or they feel like they have to be bigger than Orientals.
Of course, they're better, but why?
Why? Because they are taking benefits and this shows them as a
Sir, can I try?
I can't explain.
At some point, Europeans believed that Europeans created a self-imaginary scale about human life and like civilization kind of thinking. That they think that they are the most civilized one in this world, and Africans or Middle Easterns are not as civilized as Europeans. But they also believe, they also know that at one point or at a certain time, they are also lower in that scale, or that they were also not civilized as they are now. So they are trying to show that they are not, they are against the Orient, but also taking benefit from it.
Okay, yeah, you got it perfectly. But could you explain? This is you guys are using this as an example, all right? Did you guys understand the example I just mentioned?
And about the secularism, at a certain time, the Europeans had a law that to keep religion and governmental rules and laws different from each other, because if we to mix it, that can create a chaos. But before it was not like that. So that came after a certain period of time. When the concept of Orientalism has been cleared or like changing.
Okay, after they came to secularism, what happens?
They separated the religion. When it comes to
How do their perceptions of the Orient change once they come to secularism? Basically, they say, well, we have gotten better. We have separated the two. You guys have to separate it as well. If you guys don't separate it, you guys are backwards. Do you guys understand?
No, sir. I didn't.
You didn't. আমি আপনাকে বাংলায় এখন বুঝাই because I'm really struggling. আইডিয়াটা এরকম।
So you can use English, but I did not understand why we need secularism.
No, I'm not saying, I did not say that we need secularism. I'm saying the Europeans, they came out of religious governance into secularism, but then they invaded the Oriental lands, and once they invaded the Oriental lands, they said, well, you guys have to do this too, otherwise you guys are backwards. Do you guys understand? Because the logic is, you guys are acting like how we used to act before, and they're saying to the Orientals.
So I think they pretend being good, but they are not. Like this.
pushing them back to
They're pushing the past to others.
Yes, it is as if said. So আমি আপনাকে আবার বুঝাই বিষয়টা। আমি আগে একটা খারাপ কাজ করতাম, ঠিক আছে? আমি আগে একটা খারাপ কাজ করতাম, আমি এখন খারাপ কাজটা থেকে বের হয়ে আসছি, আমি এখন সুফি হয়ে গেছি, সুফি বাবা হয়ে গেছি। এখন আমি আমার বন্ধুকে বলবো, ভাই তুই চুরি করিস কেন, তুইও সুফি বাবা হয়ে যা। কথার কথা আমি বলতেছি না আসলে যে ইউরোপ সুফি বাবা হয়ে গেছে, কথার কথা বলতেছি আর কি।
ওদের মতো না সুফি বাবা।
হ্যাঁ বলো যে এই তোরাও আমাদের মতো সুফি বাবা হয়ে যা, তুই তো আমি আগে যেরকম ছিলাম সেরকম আসিস। That's the European way of thinking. Do you understand? And there's a reason for this. Europeans had a lot of wars, religious wars. So around 15th or 16th century, I don't know the exact date, but they had an event called Restoration.
Restoration period.
What happened during the Restoration? Who can tell me?
Yes.
Restoration, yeah, what happened? Okay, so
Then this period, but I have the explanation.
okay, fine, no problem. So there was the Catholic Church, okay, and the church had become very, very corrupt. So a group of people came and said, you guys are corrupt, you guys are not following Christianity, we are going to go back to a more purer version of Christianity. They call themselves Protestant. There was a war between the two. And then there are other sects like the Anglicans, the Baptists, and so on and so forth. And they had a huge war. And they had a huge war. They had a lot of bloodshed. Lots of millions of people died. And they associated religion with violence. And when they conquered the Orientals or the Easterners, they look at their religion and says, well, you guys we used to be like that, but you guys have to become like us now, because they're basically projecting their own experiences on the Orientals, on the Easterners. Did I manage to explain that? Maybe this topic needed a bit more time to explain, but did I manage to explain?
Since it's in your course, so I think it will get we needed some time. We have to study at home. We need to research so that we can understand.
Okay, no problem. It's basically what I said before. They're basically projecting their own experiences on the other person, on another person. Okay, continue. You wanted to read, right? History.
Historically and culturally, there is a quantitative as well as qualitative difference between the Franco-British involvement in the Orient and until the period of American ascendancy after World War II, the involvement of every other European and Atlantic power. To speak of Orientalism, therefore, is to speak mainly, although not exclusively, of a British and French culture enterprise, a project whose dimensions take in such disparate realms as the imagination itself, the whole of India and the Levant, the biblical text and the biblical lands, the spice trade, colonial armies, and a long tradition of colonial administrators, a formidable scholarly corpus, innumerable Oriental experts and hands, an Oriental professorate, a complex array of Oriental ideas, Oriental despotism, Oriental splendor, cruelty, sensuality, many Eastern sects,
philosophies
and wisdom domesticated for local European use. The list can be extended more or less indefinitely. My point is that Orientalism derives from a particular closeness experience between Britain and France and the Orient, which until the early 19th century had really meant only India and the Bible lands. From the beginning of the 19th century until the end of World War II, France and Britain dominated the Orient and Orientalism. Since World War II, America has dominated the Orient and approaches it as France and Britain once did. Out of that closeness, whose dynamic is enormously productive, even if it always demonstrates the comparatively greater strength of Occident, British, French, or America, comes the large body of text I call Orientalist.
Okay, so you two had a question, yes.
What is the Atlantic power?
Atlantic power is they're talking about America. Yes.
I wanted to ask something off topic. Do you have the attendance sheet, or we should give that is in?
We have time. Look, what time is it? It's your class ends at 11:30, right?
Yes.
We have time. I have the attendance sheet. No problem. Just remind me 10 minutes before the class ends, okay? Because I might lose track. Yes. Anybody had any question about this part? This part I want to focus on. The second line. To speak of Orientalism, therefore, is to speak mainly, although not exclusively, of a British and French cultural enterprise, a project whose dimensions take in such disparate realms as the imagination itself, the whole of India and the Levant, the biblical text and the biblical land, the spice trade, colonial armies, and a long tradition of colonial administrators, a formidable scholarly corpus, innumerable Oriental experts and hands, an Oriental professorate. Oh my God, this sentence is huge. A complex area of Oriental ideas, Oriental despotism, Oriental splendor, cruelty, sensuality, many Eastern sects, philosophies, and wisdoms domesticated for local European use. The list can be extended more or less definitely. So they're talking about to speak of Orientalism, therefore, is to speak mainly of, although not exclusively of, a British and French cultural enterprise. British and French. Look here. Orientalism is, basically he's saying, Orientalism is a British, originally speaking, and French cultural enterprise. So you guys have to know a bit more history here. So the Britain and France don't like each other. Long story short, okay? They don't like each other. Britain is conquering some land. The French are conquering some land, and they've both colonized a good portion of the large amounts of areas. And Britain says to France, "You guys are not as good as us. We are better at conquering land." French says, "No, we are better at conquering land than you guys. We are better at this." You know?
Even the North America was occupied by these two.
Yeah, exactly. So the Britain and France are competing to conquer more land. Plain and simple. So most of the texts, the Orientalist texts, come from where? Britain and France. And later on, America. So America take up their legacy. You wanted to read, right?
It should be said at once that even with the generous number of books and authors that I examine, there is a much larger number that I simply have had to leave out. My arguments, however, depends neither upon an exhaustive
catalog of texts
dealing with the Orient nor upon a clearly delimited set of texts, authors and ideas that together makes up the Orientalist panel. I have depended instead upon a different methodological alternatives whose backbone is a sense of the set of historical generalizations I have so far been making in this introduction. And it is I want now to discuss in more analytical details.
Just talk about the methodology. Okay, continue.
I have begun with the assumption that the Orient is not an inert fact of nature. It is not merely there, just as the Occident itself is not just there either. We must take seriously both Vico's great observation that men make their own history, that what they can know is what they have made. The extent is it to
and extend it to geography.
As both geographical and cultural entities, to say nothing of historical entities such locals, regions, geographical sectors as Orient and Occident are man-made, therefore, as much as the West itself. The Orient is an idea that has a history and tradition of thoughts, imagery and vocabulary that have given it reality and presence in and for the West. The two geographical entities thus support and to an extent reflect each other. Having said that, one must go on to state a number of reasonable qualifications. In the first place, it would be wrong to conclude that the Orient was essentially an idea or a creation with no corresponding reality. When Disraeli said in his novel Tancred that the West was a career, East was a career, he meant that to be interested in the East was something bright young Westerners would find to be an all-consuming position.
Passion.
Passion. He should not be interpreted as saying that the East was only a career for Westerners. There were and are cultures and nations whose location in the East and their lives, histories and customs have a brute reality, obviously greater than anything that could be said about them in the West. About the fact that this study of Orientalism has very little to contribute, except to knowledge it tacitly. But the phenomenon of Orientalism as I study deals principally not with a correspondence between Orientalism and Orient, but with the internal consistency of Orientalism and its idea about the Orient, the East as career, despite or beyond any correspondence or lack thereof with a real Orient. My point is that Disraeli's statements about the West refers
East. What text are you reading?
East refers mainly to that created consistency, that regular constellation of ideas as the preeminent thing about the Orient, and not to its mere being, as Welsh Stevens' phrase has it. A second qualification is that
Okay, wait, stop. Did you guys get a sense of what this part is trying to say? Yes. What we just read? I understand. Do you guys need a little bit of time to think about it? No? You guys don't want to understand it? Okay, start from here. Second paragraph. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. Eighth line, I think. 8th line, there were and are. And are cultures and nations whose location is in the East, and their lives, histories and customs have a brute reality obviously greater than anything that can be said about them in the West. What does this mean? There were and are cultures and nations whose location is in the East, and their lives, histories and customs have a brute reality obviously greater than anything that could be said about them in the West. Why aren't you looking into the text?
Here where then there is a hyphen. Just a hyphen or meaning things.
Sorry?
Is there where?
Yes, there's a hyphen, I can see that, yeah.
Just a hyphen or meaning other things?
What does the hyphen mean? Certain something? I don't really know. I don't think it means anything particular.
Specifically a hyphen, or it shows another. It's symbolizing something else.
No. It's just a hyphen. Don't read too much into it.
Literature student. Think like.
No, this is not poetry. This is prose.
Basically telling about the nations or cultures whose locations are in the East. Their life, histories and everything is far greater than what we know from the West.
From the Western conception. Exactly. So basically, the study of the East by the West, quite simply put, the study of the East by the West cannot fully comprehend or capture the entirety of Eastern, let's say Eastern knowledge, history, culture, basically the Eastern experience. They cannot really capture it through their scholarship. It is impossible, is what they're trying to say here. What Said is trying to say here. Okay. Then read this part. No. There is no such thing as overload. There's no such thing as overload. Look, we only got up to page 5. How many pages does this thing have? 29. How many classes will this take? Another 4 classes, am I correct? maybe 5.
In English.
In English, yes.
আচ্ছা বলুন না বলতে দাও
স্যার আমি সাবজেক্টে স্যার কিছু বুঝতেছি না একদম সহজ কথা
Great. This is, I want to hear this, I wanted to hear,
Communications.
huh? Media is a communication platform, as some of you, somebody mentioned here. Or there are other definitions. Media is that which mediates.
Yes.
Okay? So media can basically be anything. Pretty much anything from digital media to print media. So basically pretty much everything that communicates something to you is media. Whether it be a billboard, flyer, poster, cinema, newspaper, interview, whatever is media. Even social media is media. Social media or something. So our range is very broad. The purpose of this text is to give you an impression of, so basically who controls the media now? The West controls the media. That's why we need to read this text. Because if the West controls the media, understanding Western perception of East helps us understand how East has been presented in the media. Do you understand why we are reading this text?
Yes, sir.
It has little to, you might think it has little to do with media, but it has everything to do with media.
If you, sir, kindly give us some questions paper, like then we will research, then we will create an answer on our own opinion.
No. This is not literature. This is not literature. We are studying theory.
We have to memorize this.
No, you don't have to memorize this. You have to understand it. Just understanding is good enough. If you understand, you can write. If you don't understand, you cannot write. The question can be very simple, right? The question can be very simple. Maybe it's a 2-line answer, but you don't understand, you cannot write.